From the initial submissive guarding position under the side mount, the athlete will need to turn towards his opponent, bringing both legs near the opponent's rear section. The athlete will need to transition to his side by pressing off his left foot and bringing his hips away from his opponent while turning to his right side. The initial position starts in the submissive side position, where the athlete is curled towards the opponent. The athlete's upper thigh should be positioned behind the opponent's gluteal muscles and hamstring, while the lower leg is extended along the floor towards the opponent. Flexing towards the opponent, the athlete's top arm should be stretched across the opponent's obliques, holding on the athlete's upper knee. The lower hand position on the opponent's inner knee via cupping of the knee with the hand. The second part of the movement includes the athlete flexing his upper leg, providing pressure behind the opponent's gluteal muscle, moving his upper knee towards his opponent's shoulder, his opposite shoulder. The upper arm maintains space and the attachment to knee utilizing his hand. The shoulders slightly should abduct at this point to maintain space while flexing upward about 10 degrees from the shoulder axle arm position. The upper arm should make an apparent contraction from being at about 160 degrees to about 90 to 115 degrees due to contraction from the elbow axle. The arm should couple with the knee in displacing the opponent's center of gravity and producing force, keeping in mind that the contraction is coming from the latimus dorsi and the tricep of the upper arm. Keep in mind that the arm should couple with the knee in displacing the opponent's center of gravity and producing force. In the next phase, once the opponent's hips are directly over the athlete's upper pectorals and shoulders, the athlete can transition his hands to the lower obliques and upper hip with the forearm across the opponent's lumbar section of the spine. The lower hand maintains position in the opponent's inner knee via cupping of the knee, with the hand functioning as an elbow anchor point to reduce forward motion utilizing the opponent's outer knee. The lower leg begins to push off the ball and the side of his foot with a slight inversion while contracting the quadriceps and gluteus maximus while moving in a short linear motion towards the opponent. The upper knee starts to curve towards the shoulder on the same side in its trajectory, functioning to progress the tipping of the opponent's hip over the athlete's shoulder. During this phase, the upper leg should be aerial with the foot being dorsal flexed. The lower leg begins to push off the ball on the side of his foot with less inversion, though, and greater flexion, while contracting the quadriceps and gluteus maximus while moving in a large angular motion towards the opponent. The greatest rotation should take place in the hips during this phase. The hips should rotate towards the opposite side of the starting position. The primary facilitator of this rotation should be the abdominal extension on the same side as the lower leg and continual flexion from the hip and the upper leg, the hip of the upper leg. Before tipping takes place, the athlete must properly extend the bottom leg and utilize the proper hip extension of the lower hip to facilitate the turn of the bottom hip. This movement should be the largest phase of tipping for the opponent. There should be an apparent shift of the opponent's center of gravity from the mount position to submissive back to ground position during this transition. In the final phase, once tipping has begun to take place, the athlete should transition the original bottom hand from the inside of the opponent's knee to the outside of the opposite knee, providing control of the opponent's movement during the transition. The original top arm should maintain its position attached to the opponent's lower obliques and upper hip, though the athlete should keep his elbow close to his rib cage to maintain pressure on the opponent and strength integrity. The original lower foot should start to return from plantar flexion and inversion to somewhat of a neutral position, with his heels on managing the majority of lower limb pressure. The original upper leg should be in transition phase, rotating while reducing the angle access from the knee, moving under the athlete's body and towards the opponent.